From KPRC Channel 2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Khambrel Marshall.
And good morning and happy Mother's Day to all you moms. Thank you so much for all you do to keep your families on track, your kids on the right path, all while providing unconditional love along the way. And good morning to Elizabeth Killinger, Executive Vice President, NRG Retail. Thank you for being here. Always good to see you. Hey, so Mother's Day, I know you're very passionate about being a mom. Why so? I
am. My mom was a homemaker, my dad is an engineer, and I thought I would travel in my mom's path. And then circumstances happened, so I ended up actually getting into business and went to the University of Houston, graduated, and became a professional. And I realized I didn't want to give up that dream of being a homemaker. And so when it came time to have children, my husband and I are a team, and we each have our parts, but I'm still a homemaker, and we work together to raise our children.
You make it balance. How do you balance? It's kind of tough. I mean, your job is pretty demanding.
Every day is a new day, and the most important thing is to determine what's okay for you, and for each of us as individuals, we're setting those priorities, and then if we make a mistake, starting over and realizing tomorrow's a new day, and it's okay. I'm going to try to do what's right, be a mom, have my kids know that I'm their mom, and as you mentioned, the most important gift we can give our children is that unconditional love.
And when you get home, they're smiling at you, and it makes everything
exactly.
so much better.
Big hugs.
I know. Hey, let's talk this morning about Reliant. You're ready to donate $100,000 to one charity, and viewers can have a chance to go ahead and get involved. What's this campaign all about?
So what we did was we said, hey, all of our employees, we have thousands of employees, you all nominate charities that you're passionate about. So our employees nominated 50 different charities. We narrowed those down to top 3. And what we're asking people in the Texas community to do is vote for one of those 3 charities. And
the 3, it came down, there's a committee that decided to break that down to those 3?
And it is the Texas Area Women's Center, it is the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and a nonprofit out of Dallas called Retreat.
Yeah, and I was looking at that, and Houston Area Women's Center is dedicated to helping individuals affected by domestic and sexual violence. Yes. You can't go wrong with that. Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, they are a chapter dedicated to the cure for leukemia, lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease, and myeloma. And the Retreat you talked about, it's a cute play on words for this Dallas nonprofit, and what they do is they go in and replant in communities that have had a disaster.
Exactly.
Very interesting. So how long do people have to vote? I know it started this past Sunday, last Sunday. So
May 2nd to May 13th. So the voting, cast your votes online, go to Reliant.com, place your vote, and then we will announce the winner on May 19th. Reliant and its parent company NRG have a global giving day where employees from all across the country get out in the community and make a difference, and we'll be announcing the winner that day.
That is so neat. I want to make sure everybody has the important information. You've seen the organizations. We're talking about $100,000 up for grabs, and everyone has a vote. Everybody. You can,
whether you're a customer or not. We want you to be a customer, but if you're not, you can still vote.
And you can vote how many times?
You can vote 1 time.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day? Okay, all right. We can vote often. The second and third place vote getters receive $10,000 and $5,000, so no one is without something. Go to Reliant.com and vote as many times as you like, 1 per day, until May 13th. You know, NRG is one of the leading providers of solar power, battery, that sort of thing. Since we're coming up to hurricane season, we're not very far away from that. What kinds of things is the company doing to get ready for that season, which is going to be here a lot sooner than we really want it to be?
So we provide electricity to people's homes. We also provide power for them to carry with them on the go. So we have portable solar batteries and just portable battery systems. I think every home needs one. If the power goes out, we need to charge our phones, we need to charge our tablets, so we have that. And we also enable customers to get backup generators installed in their homes or portable ones to help if there are power outages.
Now, I don't really know that I think of seeing a number of retail centers, to, you know, to go to the Reliant store or whatever to get these things. Where do you get those kinds of things?
Well, 2 ways. One, you can call us online, on the phone. You can go to our website, the same site you'll be voting on Reliant Gives. Or we do have some stores around the city, stores within a store. We have a store in Ranch Market. We have some stores in Walmart where they're real walk-in stores where you can go in and talk to somebody about what you're interested in.
And you guys have done some research, so you know these things that are needed, that you're offering, are things that really people have needed during disasters and things like that. that in case, God forbid, we should have something, and something you're going to need.
Exactly.
And what kind of things does the company do to get ready?
Well, we have a business continuity plan. So actually May every year we will have a mock disaster that we go through and we prepare and make sure that we can still serve customers because we are nationwide. We have customers all across the country. So if something happens in Houston, we still have customers in Philadelphia that need to do what they normally do. So we have a mock drill and we go through and make sure all of our centers are prepared.
We'll have to come do something with you in our hurricane special. We'll do something and come by and talk about the kind of things people need to do to be ready.
That would be great.
Elizabeth Killinger, good to see you again.
Nice to see
always,
you as well.
Always. And happy Mother's Day again.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, it's been 15 years since the Anti-Defamation League has been focusing on its No Place for Hate campaign. We'll talk about the progress being made and the challenges still ahead. That's next when Houston Newsmakers continues. The Anti-Defamation League's No Place for Hate campaign was in more than 350 schools from 27 districts last year, and more than 400 more schools have applied for the No Place for Hate designation this year to help students deal with the challenges of prejudice and discrimination. What does that mean, and how are students being helped with that throughout Southeast Texas? Well, with me to answer those questions, the ADL Houston Associate Director, Dina Marks. Good morning, Dina. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Let's talk about what the Anti-Defamation League does, because many people may not know what ADL is all about.
Well, ADL is a civil rights organization, 103 years old, and we promote civil rights for everybody. It started out as a Jewish organization, but our founders quickly realized they had to promote civil rights for everybody in order to gain civil rights and fight anti-Semitism.
And so, over the years, I'm guessing that the need for your fight, for your stepping into the battle, we'd like to think that it's decreased a bit, that there are not that many reasons for you to get out there and hustle and fight the challenge. But I'm guessing that maybe that's not the case.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think that we've made some inroads in various areas, but the world changes very rapidly. You and I were just talking about that. And so the world changes in different ways, and so we have to learn how to fight for civil rights in different ways. So for instance, one of the things that ADL did in the 1950s was create an anti-masking law that got the Ku Klux Klan to have to take off their sheets in various situations, but now we have cyber hate. And so people can anonymously hate other people, and the mask is back on. So the fight changes. Just
evolves, it changes in different ways, and you're trying to keep up with it as best you can. I want to talk about the No Place for Hate efforts, but before we get to that, I went to the website, reading on what's going on, and the ADL's got 50 States Against Hate campaign. What's that all about?
Well, ADL drafted a hate crime law that's being used in 45 states in the District of Columbia, but there are 5 states in the United States that don't have that law. And there are also some states whose laws don't really have enough teeth. We'd like for their hate crime laws to be stronger. So what we're trying to do is get 50 states, hate crime laws in 50 states, and stronger hate crime laws in all states.
And while that's going on a national level, every of the organizations like yours in Houston, you've got the No Place for Hate program that goes on. And I guess that's designed to kind of get to the kids early on to kind of know about the challenges of prejudice and those kinds of things. Did that kind of say what it's all about? What is the No Hate?
No Place for Hate?
Yeah.
No Place for Hate is an initiative that we have in the schools. And a school that wants to become No Place for Hate will sign a resolution of respect, create a coalition of students, teachers, administrators, parents. They create activities. Some of them we might suggest to them, but they create activities that are anti-bias activities and promote respect and diversity. And then they send us proof of what they've done. And if we approve of those activities, then we designate the school No Place for Hate. And we're told by teachers, we're told by administrators, we're told by counselors that it creates a different atmosphere in the school. It really does promote respect.
And how does it do that? I mean, I saw some of the video and I saw the kids sitting around the table and they were just really engaging. Is that part of what goes on in that kind of philosophy, that if you engage with somebody else who may be different from you, you learn a little bit more about them? I don't know if that's what that's all about, but it certainly seemed to me that that was what was happening.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the activities they often do is called Mix It Up at Lunch Day, where they, at lunchtime, sit with people they wouldn't ordinarily sit with, and they're given some questions, usually to ask about the other persons that they're sitting with, and they learn about each other. So absolutely, that's part of how that works.
And you've been at it for 15 years, and it sounds like it's really growing, and maybe it's word of mouth from district to district, perhaps. How is it happening so that you're growing the way you are?
Well, a lot of it is word of mouth. Teachers, principals, students will have it at one school, they'll go to a different school, and they'll take it to the other school with them. And so that's really one way that it's been growing almost exponentially.
You had a luncheon this past week that was a milestone luncheon of sorts, I mean the Walter Case Awards, and so you're involved with teachers once again, because that was about teachers being honored as well, wasn't it?
Right, teachers, counselors, administrators who promote respect and diversity in the schools.
And that relationship is across the region among how many different districts are?
I don't have a number. I can't give you a number of districts. I don't know the number, but it's all Region 4, which is the Houston region.
Okay. So are these teachers and administrators, are they nominated? How are they selected?
They're nominated.
Okay.
Sometimes they nominate themselves. Sometimes they're nominated by other people in the school. And then a panel of judges judges what they've done, and then they're given the award.
Well, you certainly have a lot on your plate. What else is high up on the list of things that the ADL is focusing on right now?
Well, one of the things that we do is we try to learn about extremists and what they do. Today we're releasing a report about a new extremist group that's come to the United States that is anti-refugee. So we've got so many different things on our plate. If people want to go to our website and find out more about what ADL does, they can do that.
I want to make sure that people are understanding where that is. Here's the information for you to find out what's going on with the ADL. The ADL office in Houston, the website is houstonadl.org, houston.adl.org, and you can put /no place for hate at the end of that, right? And
yes, you can.
Get the specific information. Or you can call the number 713-627-3490. Dina Marks, thank you. Good luck as you continue to make the world a better place. It's so neat what you do. Thank you so much. The pride of the University of Missouri right here, doing great things in Southeast Texas. Just ahead, there's some very important information about health care in Southeast Texas. The Episcopal Health Foundation's goal is to help improve the health of 10 million people. What are some of the barriers to making that happen, and what can we do to make a difference? The president and CEO of Episcopal Health is here to talk about that when Houston Newsmakers continues.
From KPRC Channel 2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Khambrel Marshall.
And welcome back to Houston Newsmakers, where I'm joined by Elena Marks, the president and CEO of the Episcopal Health Foundation, an organization that was founded 3 years ago with what looks like to me a rather ambitious goal. Would you say that that's true?
Exactly. Improving the health and well-being of 10 million people in 57 counties is pretty ambitious.
And when you have that sort of thing, when it's placed in front of you as an idea, as a concept, and would you lead this organization, how do you start? Because when you talk about improving the health, I mean, there's so many different ways and places you could get that going.
That's exactly right. And what we did was spend most of 2014 working with the board and working with stakeholders throughout the 57 counties, trying to decide where would we focus. The board made the decision early on to be focused, that we can't be all things to all people. And if you want to do something, you should pick a few things to do, and you should do them intensely for a long period of time and do them well. And so we really spent 2014 figuring out what our priorities were and how we would do the work that we're doing, and we continue to learn every day and continue to sharpen and refine where it is we're focused.
Well, I spent some time on your website, and from what it looked like to me, you will have plenty to do for a long time.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
We will not go out of business due to lack of unmet need.
Yeah,
There's too much unmet need.
I know one of the things I saw, strong health systems and a connected community are two of the goals mentioned in your website, and that's to work toward transforming to healthy communities. So strong health systems and connected community. What does that mean?
Well, they're two separate goals, but they're actually very much related. We believe that a strong community and a healthy community is created when diverse people come together to work on and address their own problems and opportunities. And so the connected community is really the base of all of that, that you can't have a fully engaged and healthy community unless everybody's got a seat at the table.
When you say health communities coming together, we're talking about different components of the healthcare providers?
That's a part of the community, but we're talking about community residents. We think the people on the ground who have issues and problems and opportunities and assets and great qualities, that they are the ones who ought to initiate what change needs to take place and how it happens. And they need to set agendas and push agendas and buy into agendas and make things happen. The systems respond to what people say they want, but if people can't get connected and get involved, they can't make their opinions known and they can't participate appropriately. And then you have systems that aren't responsive to the people, and it's a two-edged sword. The system should be responsive to people, but people have to give systems something to respond to.
Right, right. And one of the things that you, and I don't want to forget this other point about how our region is doing. Don't let me forget that, okay? But one of the reports you issued said 25% of people in this area in our region, or was it in the state of Texas?
It's in the state of Texas.
Don't understand basic health insurance terms. That sounds to me like that's a real barrier to being involved in the health system if they don't understand the basic terms.
Well, it's a barrier to being appropriately involved in paying for your health care through health insurance. And we have been working for the last 3 years with the Baker Institute to really follow the rollout of the Affordable Care Act, and particularly the marketplace plans that enable individuals to buy plans without regard to pre-existing conditions. And what we've seen, fortunately, is that there's been an incredible uptake. More than 1 million Texans have bought these plans. Many of these people uninsured previously and unable to buy insurance. But what we've learned as we've looked at how the people who have these plans are experiencing it is that Texans as a whole and people who buy their own plans particularly don't really understand the terminology.
So, for example, what kind of terminology is it?
So, for example, terms like premiums and deductibles and copays and provider networks, the way that a policy is put together is that it has a financial component and it has a service component, and each of those components have subcomponents. And when people are selecting an insurance product, they really need to know more than just what the premium is, because the premium is just one piece of the financial pie and it doesn't actually address the service part of it. And so there are a lot of moving parts in health insurance, and as a country we've never really had to learn that. Most people in this country historically have and still do get their insurance through their employers, and most employers are offering one plan, maybe two plans. So employees haven't, we as Americans haven't really had to learn about insurance plans. It's either do you want this one, that one, or nothing.
Is the foundation offering ways to help people understand those terminologies, or this is just the first step in understanding what one of the problems is?
Well, we fund a lot of organizations that do community outreach and education around health insurance, who are trying to get people enrolled in products, but as they're getting them enrolled, they're trying to help them learn what it is they're buying and how to really make the best decisions for themselves.
We talk about wanting to have a healthy community. How well is our community doing in getting toward that goal?
Harris County as a whole has sort of middling health outcomes, but within Harris County there are pockets of the community, not small pockets of the community, whose health outcomes are really poor and that mirror some parts of sub-Saharan Africa.
Really?
Really.
I don't even know what sub-Saharan Africa's numbers are, but that sounds like it's not very good.
It's true, and if you look at things like preterm deliveries and low birth weight babies and women who die from complications related to childbirth, our numbers in certain parts of the city are as bad as in some of the countries that are the poorest in the world. And yet we have some parts of the community and some people and some groups that have amazingly wonderful outcomes.
So you're just chipping away little by little, trying to just make sure exposing those areas and giving people a chance to, okay, react, those communities coming together to try to solve those issues?
Well, that's part of it. It is working with the communities who are most affected and saying, here's the data, and what do you want to do about it? What do you want to see change? Because if you don't engage the actual people whose lives you're hoping to help and to change, then you're just not going to get anywhere.
You know, this is one of those topics. So I remember when we first started talking about this, when this was being started, I think about 3 years ago, just as you were taking that on. Yes. And there's a lot to do, and you guys are doing such a great job. Thank you for coming in. I want people to know where you can find out more about Episcopal Health and get information about the research being done and much more. Go to the website, episcopalhealth.org, or call 713-225-0900. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you very much.
Always good to see you again.
You too.
Best of luck as you help us get healthy in our community.
I appreciate it.
You're never going to be bored, that's for sure. Hey, before we go, a sneak peek at tonight's special report on the mother of Pastor Joel Osteen on this Mother's Day Houston Newsmakers. That's next when Houston Newsmakers continues. Well, it's Mother's Day, as you know by now, and we're honoring mothers tonight at 10 o'clock with a very special interview. Channel 2's Dominique Saxa sat down with a one-on-one interview with Dodi Osteen, mother of Pastor Joel Osteen and First Lady of Lakewood Church. She has a new book called If My Heart Could Talk, a story of family, faith, and miracles. It focuses on her life growing up on the East Side and her years in the ministry. Here's a preview of Dominique's interview.
You've had so many blessings throughout your life. I learned about your upbringing, your parents. You're an only child, and your parents really put a lot of emphasis in parenting and raising you well. Tell me about your upbringing.
I was the love of their life. I mean, between the love they had for themselves, I was their life. And I can remember the time back in, probably the 40s, that they took me to a store in Pasadena and bought me 10 new dresses at once. And to me, that was just, I couldn't believe any little girl would have 10 new dresses at one time, but that they would have given anything for me, just anything.
You can see Dominique's full interview with Dodi Osteen tonight on Channel 2 News at 10 o'clock. Looking ahead to next week, Mayor Sylvester Turner. The mayor's last visit was in December, the day after he was elected mayor of Houston. Lots happened since then, and we'll catch up with how he's adjusting and the biggest challenges he's zeroing in on. Mayor Sylvester Turner next week here on Houston Newsmakers. Congressman Al Green will also make an appearance, and if you'd like to join our social media Newsmakers conversation, follow us on Twitter at KPRC Khambrel, #HOU Newsmakers. And if there are subjects or stories you'd like for me to take on or questions you'd like me to ask the mayor, email me at HoustonNewsmakers@click2Houston.com. Thank you for joining me. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. We'll see you back here again next week.